Hello and welcome to 13.15 of League of Legends. My name is Chris, and I'm once again joined by my patch review duo partner Jason.
Hey Chrissy, good to be back for 13-15. The patch that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, a little tired. Thankfully, this one isn't terribly long, so that's great.
Yeah,
Uh,
until we do all of the arena changes.
yeah, I hear you. All right, let's get first real quick into Aatrox here. If I'm not mistaken, isn't this exactly what they changed in the last patch? Now it's all
So
getting nerfed.
the last patch they gave him much higher AD ratios and significantly lower base damages. They're just tuning back the AD ratios a little bit.
Hmm, that was their first mistake. They never should have touched this ability. This ability was always just fine.
So remember when I said that the changes were power neutral? Yeah, I was just prognosticating what was going to happen after patch 13-15.
Yeah, I don't even know what to think of when I see this like spaghetti mess of shit.
Yeah, there's so many different ratios on his Darkened Blade, but essentially this is just a little bit of a partial revert to the part that they buffed last patch. It's still significantly higher AD ratios than he had 2 patches ago.
Well, I'm all for Aatrox buffs, to be honest. Sure, he's kind of a bully in the laning phase, but I'm still of the opinion that he kind of falls off a cliff in the late game.
Yeah, I don't know. I see him have more success in the late game than you do. Um, but I think that this is fine for him. I mean, he's still doing right 540% AD damage.
Yeah,
If he's hitting on three spots, it's like,
yeah, it always sounds his shit sounds good like on paper, but in
uh,
execution, his DPS doesn't really get much better as the game goes on because his animations don't get any faster. So he's really kind of gated behind the same Q animation the entire game, and that's really what I think kind of makes him not as good in the late game.
yeah, I see what you're saying there, but particularly now that they're giving him better scaling with the AD, that is a way for him to get better into the late game rather than just having higher base damages. So I don't know if you've seen him in the last like patch or two. He seems pretty good to me.
If they really wanted to help him, they should just reduce like the animation speed by like 25% per like 100 bonus attack damage or something.
Yeah, yeah, increase the animation speed.
Whatever.
Yeah, that would be a cool touch. Anyhow, Aatrox is doing fine, and I think he'll still be fine after these slight nerfs.
All right, next up we've got Annie, and we have some Tibbers changes here. We've got, let's see, some less health, but more health. Yeah, just I guess less AP scaling and then more stuff stats Tibbers gets for free without AP. So what is it? Is this power neutral?
No, this is a nerf.
Okay.
Look particularly at the Tibbers health AP ratio. This is big, as well as not getting the resistances anymore. And he's always going to be building significant AP. I mean, as a burst mage, she has to do that. So the little bit of extra health that she's getting throughout the game on Tibbers and this maybe the slight increase to the base resistances is not enough to compensate for these lower AP ratios.
Uh Actually, now that I take a second look at this, I don't think I agree. I mean, she's losing 25% of the AP, but it's getting like 400 more health. I mean, you're not going to get that much from the AP.
Only at level 18. If you look at, for example, level 16, it has 200 less base health. And then remember that if she has, let's say, 600 AP, that's another 150 health off at all levels. I think it's a clear nerf personally.
Uh,
Ivern and Yorick's Maiden also got some similar types of changes for them. It's a little bit more favorable because they don't have such a need to build AP as Annie does. And
Yeah.
with that said, right, like Tibbers as a body, Tibbers as a pet is really kind of a little bit of a bonus. Most of the time, you're using the ultimate for an area of effect stun in the first place, and that's kind of like the most power that you get from it. This is not terrible. This is not gonna like take her out of relevance, but it is a
Yeah.
nerf.
You can never really afford to focus Tibber anyway, so it is kind of inconsequential.
Right. Annie honestly is one of those champions that I think might appear at some point in our champion judgment series, because she has that kind of weird split
Yeah, I can see that.
persona. Yeah, between being like a very simple burst mage and being like this summoner. Um, and really, if they go all in on one or the other, I think it could make for a more interesting champion. I would like to see them go all in on the summoner aspect.
I would make her like a teenager.
Instead of being like a 5-year-old.
Well, she's been 5 for like 14 years, you know?
That's true. I mean, she's you basically go out to the bar at this point.
Although, surprisingly, if they did do that, she'd probably be more annoying as a teenager than she is as like an 8-year-old or whatever she is.
She can still count to 5. All right, enough about
Okay.
Annie.
Next up, we've got Caitlyn here with some bonuses to how her passive synergy is with Critical Strike, and more scaling from crit off of her ultimate. These both look like buffs to me. And her passive is already very strong, so it's probably going to make her even more lane dominant.
Yeah, this is a nice buff for her. Not only more lane dominant, but also since it's scaling better with crit, which you're going to be building later on, also better in the late game. I thought Caitlyn was a fairly strong champion, and I'm wondering if maybe the changes to the items, as well as the constant nerfs to Lulu and Milio in the last several patches, who are two supports that work really well with her. I wonder if that's the reason that maybe she was appearing a little bit weaker than she was in the past.
Yeah, I don't know. She'll always have that strong spot as the, preeminent lane bully until someone else comes around that has better range at level 1, which I don't think
I have to admit,
they'll never do
oh,
that to her
go on.
though, I think.
Yeah, I have to admit, I didn't even know that there was a like a specific hard-coded Infinity Edge damage buff to her headshot. That's just weird.
Uh it's not as weird as you think it is. It's merely saying that because Infinity Edge increases the critical strike multiplier, that it's
Mhm.
special case to give her more like scaling on her. Any champion that has an interaction with critical strike has something like this on their ability
But they do that
page.
on every champion with a crit interaction.
Yeah, like
Gotcha.
Gangplank has like the same thing.
I'm sure Jin has a bunch of them.
Probably, yeah. Actually, his
Yeah.
crits do less damage.
Right. Right. But the abilities that have like critical strike interactions would still have a bonus of some sort with Infinity Edge.
Yeah, his ultimate scales with Infinity Edge too.
Cool.
Okay, next up we got Camille. She doesn't get touched a lot, so seeing her get changes is always interesting. And probably some of these mythic changes have actually been kind of harder on her. Divine Sunder has been so core on her since it was released. It's been broken as shit on her for so long, but now that it's been nerfed 65,000 times, she's probably actually a lot worse off than she is, but as long as it still does what it does, it'll always still be very good on her just because she converts the Sheen proc into true damage and it's still a health shred and all that jazz.
Right. Yeah, that's still pretty good.
The good
And
part.
getting a mhm.
Go on.
I said getting such a big damage increase on Hextech Ultimatum for every auto attack that you deal. I know that Camille isn't exactly the world's prime auto attacker, but this
No,
is a
but
pretty nice buff.
she's not, but she
Yeah,
has a lot of attack resets,
yeah,
which is
and being
basically
able to get
artificial.
let's say 5 auto attacks in the time that you have someone in the ultimatum and you're quote unquote dueling them, um, that's 75 damage extra now at level 6 and 125 at level 16. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, she probably should have gotten this buff many years ago. These were always kind of silly numbers to
I,
put on her
I
ultimate.
still almost every time that I see a Camille on my team or even the enemy team, she just fails spectacularly. She maybe gets 1 or 2 kills early on and just feeds the rest of the game.
She's varies like feast or famine, kind of, especially in the top lane where people are play very aggro most of the time. There's basically only
Yeah,
one way to play her in the laning phase, and that's obnoxious as fuck.
I mean she
Everyone,
has like the
yeah,
Aurelia upside, or a really good player who can gauge their engages and their disengages well. Can do a lot of work with her.
yeah. In my
But
experience,
usually I
most of
just
the people that play Camille are very good at Camille, just because she tends to only attract better players. She's not one of those low effort champs that like Darius that the whole horde will swarm over to want to play Darius. You have to put a lot of time into Camille.
yeah, I agree with that, but I see a lot of players who don't put a lot of time on, have lots of mastery, still get into my ranked games and just feed their ass off.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to say her Q, the second half of her Q also converts the damage from her ultimate to true damage as well. So
Yeah, she has some interesting interactions in her kit.
that would take into account this change to her ultimate. Okay, next up we got Gwen, and we got some more changes to her W. This thing's been changed like 10 times now. Now it's getting buffed. Next week it'll be nerfed though. Because, yeah, that's just how shit rolls. They nerfed the duration on this, and I guess that was a good thing. I don't know. I didn't really think she was that problematic, because there's champions in the game with similar tools, to be honest.
Yeah, just a nice slight little buff. I believe this is 5 resistances at all levels, so it doesn't really matter how quickly you're scaling the Hallowed Mist.
Yeah, but
But nice little buff. Go on.
I think in the last time, 2 or 3 times she got changed, they removed the AP ratio from this ability, though.
I was playing Arena a couple of days ago, and I was just dominating as Lulu alongside a Kaisa. And the one team that actually started to beat us later on was a Tarek and Gwen together.
That makes
There was one
sense.
round where they 100 to 0'd us within like 2.5 seconds, and I literally just typed to my to the Kaisa, how the hell did she do this much damage? Because it
Oh,
was
yeah.
all the Gwen, and
Yeah,
like I don't know.
she does.
We ended up
She's a monster late game.
Yeah. I don't know what kinds of like combinations he had with the augments or whatever, but it was absolutely crazy. We ended up beating them in the final round. They tried to dive the Kaisa. I just used everything I could to protect her. She got away, and then I was kind of in the middle of them, and they were like, wailing on me. But there was like some point after which Gwen had used the Hallowed Mist twice that they really just couldn't quite chase my Lulu's speed down because I had a lot of ability haste as well. So I'd polymorph her, I would speed myself up, I would shield myself, and with about 50 HP left, I just ran them around half of the map, led them to my Kaisa, as Gwen had already used her cooldowns to try and chase me, and then Kaisa just ran in and burst her, and we won the arena match. But oh my god, how fast does she deal damage?
Well, the more AP she gets, the more max health percentage damage she does, and that
Yeah.
procs on her autos, her Q, and her ultimate. So she synergizes really well with just anything.
Yeah, she can be a monster.
I
Next up,
actually
we've got
really like
Heimer.
her. I actually play a pretty good Gwen myself. Yep. Next up, we got the Dogger. Getting some rare changes here. Unfortunately, it's not really anywhere that would really help him. If I'm not mistaken, this is his ultimate turret. You don't really see this
Yes.
one. This is like the one you actually see the least, honestly. As people tend to go for either the big burst on the Hextech Rocket Swarm ultimate, or they want like the team fight potential of the multi-stun grenade thing, bouncy thing. But we got some, what do we got?
This,
Is
this is
this?
this is. I would call it a slight nerf. It's a little bit better at level 6. It's a little bit worse at level 16 and level 18 and whatever. Because you're not getting as much of an AP health ratio. But overall, this is just a very slight nerf. I do see the upgraded turrets probably more often than you're implying. Usually, he does the upgraded stun or the big swarm of rockets. But I do see this sometimes when he sets up like a big field of turrets, and you're trying to chase him into it, and then when you finally catch him, he just Zanyas.
Oh
So
yeah. I mean, if you know they're gonna walk into a bush, this is the one you want.
yeah. So like with the amount that he can just basically hit you with that turret at the high levels and with how tanky it actually is at level 16, 17, 18, I'm happy to see this nerfed a little bit.
If they were smart, they should have added an AP ratio for the duration it lasts, because that's why it sucks. It can only shoot like 6 times.
Yeah, I've always been kind of a fan of that type of utility scaling. Honestly, League of Legends was one of the first was the first game I've ever seen um do utility scaling or things other than just like damage healing shielding scale with your ability power stat, and I just thought that was really cool. And they've backed off a little bit on that in recent years, which I'm kind of sad about because I thought that was just such a cool mechanic.
No, I think they've been doing that for a long time consistently. There's things that scale with lethality now. Who thought that was going to be a thing?
Well, that tends to be not really utility scaling. It's just
I
some
know,
type of
but it's something weird
yeah,
that never scaled with anything before.
right. I agree. Like the thing is, lethality already has a use, right? It is armor penetration. AP has no use on its own except where the abilities use it. So that's why I really liked having like these utility type of skills that normally don't do damage, healing, or shielding get some type of cool scaling with their AP ratio.
Well, on
It was
Pike,
just a really
le-
elegant way to make AP items useful on enchanters or other people with utility.
on Pike, lethality gives him more movement speed when he does his deep water dive.
Yeah, Pike has some weird stat interactions, doesn't he?
And if I'm not mistaken, it also governs the amount of like gray health that he can have at most at a time too.
Lethality does?
It's like his max health plus a certain amount of lethality is how much gray health he can like
Oh,
store,
I see. I thought that was AD.
and then when he comes out of it, it's how much he gets left.
Cool.
Okay, next up we got Ivern, who is starting to be promising for a second, but nope, it was way too good to be true. I don't really
Nope.
give a shit about any of these changes except Trigger Seed because it was the only thing they in his rework that was actually stupidly strong in my opinion. And now they gutted the fuck out of it. Keep in mind this ability basically goes off twice on some people half the time or whatever, so that scaling really hurts now. I mean, 150% AP basically, that was pretty powerful. I only wish I took the time to actually play him as support when he had the 75% AP ratio, because I think it would have been pretty effective and probably no one else was doing it. You know?
Well, I've definitely seen people. I was actually playing Ivern support for a while, even before his recent rework. It worked
I
okay.
hope they
The
reported
interesting
you.
thing about it, I got reported once, but I didn't do anything wrong. Instead, I reported them, and they got punished. Um, but the interesting thing about this set of changes, I was looking at the shield AP ratio being reduced, the AP ratios on Daisy being reduced, and the base shield and some of the base numbers being increased. And my initial thought was that this is definitely trying to get rid of support Ivern. In addition to the fact that Daisy is now scaling straight on level, and the scaling is much higher than the 6, 11, 16 scaling was. It's 400 health for Daisy at the later levels for every level that you increase. Not every level in the R, literally every level from 1 to 18 for Ivern. So I was thinking that, that they're saying we're trying to take down the AP ratios. We're trying to make sure he requires levels. They're trying to get rid of support Ivern. Then you get to this change with Brushmaker, where he increases the ally base damage by twice as much as he did last
That was
batch.
pathetic anyway.
Yeah, it's not much, but this is like almost like they're throwing a bone to support Ivern. So my only guess is that they're trying to kind of increase the power of tank Ivern, get him to build a little bit tankier, and reduce the power of an AP or like support item heavy build. This is weird.
I don't know how they ever rationalized nerfing this guy. At least let him be super strong for a couple patches before you nerf him.
Yeah, he still has that nice AP ratio on Q, but I think with taking the shield AP ratio down from 75 to 50, now there's almost no excuse for building him AP. I think you want to go full tank with Ivern. Maybe like one support item.
Why would you want to build him tanky?
Because first of all, then he can be a useful frontline for your team. But second of all, he can also survive longer to get more CC and more shields out.
Yeah, but he doesn't scale off of like health, armor, MR, or anything.
He doesn't necessarily scale off of it, but all of his abilities are more useful the more that you can use them. That they're not about dealing damage.
You could make that argument for every champ in the game.
To some level you could, but I think you can make it for the kind of like the CC mages and enchanters a lot more than you can make it for anyone else. Like, you're not going to
Yeah,
want to build Tank Vagar, for example.
that actually makes more sense than Tank Ivern, I think.
No, it definitely does not.
Because if he's got a ton of stacks, then he doesn't have to index and do as many items for AP.
I mean,
Not that I would do it,
so.
but it would make more sense than Ivern.
I suppose so, but he's still not going to be able to get away after he unloads his combo.
Well, I don't
And
think
he's going to do.
Daisy's or Ivern's gonna get to get away.
This is interesting because they have they've made changes to, I think, 4 of like the big pet type of champions, if you include Heimerdinger's big turret. And I was curious about why they did this. So like, I promise you, I don't
I don't believe you anyway.
look at actual League of Legends Riot patch notes unless there's a really good reason, and so I did not look yet, but I have it up here if you want me to read it out. What they did for the ultimate summons, and we can see what they were actually trying to do with these weird get rid of the AP ratio changes.
I don't want to give their rationalizations a platform. You know.
Okay, I'll check it out after the video then, 'cause I am really curious.
Okay, next up we got Kaisa. Less health, less damage on her Q. That actually equals like a lot more overall. Probably also affects the upgraded version too, I imagine, of her Q. So a 10% nerf on that probably does actually scale to be a pretty fat nerf, I imagine. And then we got an utterly meaningless nerf here on her W. Absolutely meaningless.
I like that they made it a round number, though.
Yep. So just a straight up nerf.
Kaisa is one of those champions that I thought was going to be an even bigger problem with balance, with the fact that she has 3 passives and all kinds of essentially multi-hits or on-hit effects. She's actually been kind of a healthier champ than I ever thought that she would be, and I like her place in the game. She's been very, very strong with the recent reworks to the ADC mythics, and so I'm fine with her taking this series of small nerfs. What do you think?
I think if a good player is playing her, you can build pretty much anything outside of tank items, and she'll perform pretty well, just because of all of her scaling and all of her built-in magic damage and stuff like that. I don't think it matters too much what she builds. As long as she's running like lethal tempo, she can basically run anything else in the game.
Yeah, I feel like just based on how well some of those new on-hit items synergize with what she does, I think that those are the best things that she can build personally. But I totally agree with you. There's a lot of different feasible build paths for Kai'Sa in almost any meta.
Yep. Okie dokie. Next up, we got Maokai, who apparently he was too good in the jungle, if you can believe that. I don't think I've even seen him in the jungle in a very long time. I've seen him top a couple times. He's actually one of my favorite top guys. But his clear was too good in the jungle, folks. So we got to cut back on that. He was too good at clearing the raptor camp, I suspect, with this Q change.
Yeah, that's probably what it looks like. That or maybe the small. No, probably the Raptors. Anyway, this is a pretty small nerf, and it's not making his clear any less safe. It's just making it a little bit less quick. Maybe he was getting around to too many ganks and having success as a jungler that way.
If it takes you longer to do the camp, you're gonna have less health. No.
Yeah, but it's Maokai in the jungle with a jungle pet. He's still probably gonna come out of almost all the camps with 90% plus health.
Yeah, I forget how bone dead simple they make the jungle now with all this crazy shit they add every season.
Yeah, it's much more about clear speed than about making it less safe. All right.
Okie dokie. Next up, we got Nami. We've got a bit more movement speed on her passive and more scaling with that movement speed. This is a cool change. It's a very short movement speed increase, but she can proc it a bunch of times and it doubles on her ultimate. So Nami's one of my favorite supports. So
Yeah,
cool.
a lot of people who don't play Nami think that the speed boost is just on her E, but it's actually it's if you hit an ally with a W, even if you bubble an ally. Which I sometimes do when I am running with my ADC back to lane. You can get a little bit of a bonus speed boost by doing that. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Nami is a champ that I think has struggled. She used to be one of my top 3 most played champs for a few seasons in a row. And I've kind of given up on her in most games and against most teams because she does a bunch of things okay. She doesn't do one thing really, really well. She can't speed people up or peel quite as well as Janna. She can't heal as well as Soraka or Sona. She can't really CC as well as someone like Morgana or as consistently. There's just no one thing that she does really well.
I think she heals better than Sona, at least in the laning phase. Like later in the game, later in the game, you're right. Sona's a lot better, but she's way better healer in the laning phase. I think she's remarkably similar to Lulu and Milo, whereas she's kind of a laning phase trading support, and after like the laning phase, she tends to fall off kind of a bit. Obviously, Lulu doesn't have that problem because her kit's a lot more robust in dealing with threats, so she scales really well the entire game. And Milo's kit is just like pop Swiss cheese at the moment. But I think Nami is actually Nami will always have a good place in the game just because how good she follows up aggression with her AD carry. That's why she's been like a staple pick for like Draven for like 10 years, you know?
Yeah, and obviously a very good combo with Lucian.
Yeah, before the electrocute nerfs.
Yeah. Even now, I think it's a very good combo with Lucian.
Yeah, it is still.
Anyway, yeah, these are some nice changes. If she's building a few hundred AP, which sometimes she does, this is going to mean maybe 30, 40 more movement speed from Surging Tides. And remember, that is doubled on her ult if you hit allies with her ult. So, yeah, this is a nice little buff. I don't think it's going to change the fact that she doesn't do any one thing really as well as other supports do. But it's not bad.
Yep, I like her.
Yep, okay. And then extra damage as a reward for hitting your Q, because the Q is not easy to hit. Nice.
Yeah, I tend to like using that reactively because I feel like it's too much of a gamble to use it proactively because it's so easy to miss. I
Yeah,
feel
that's
like
true.
it's a
Like you
lot
need
better
that
to use
dash.
it. Yeah, it's a lot better to use on aggression than I feel like it is to try to engage with it, you know? Okay,
You're saying to
next.
use it defensively.
Yeah, defensively, reactively, whatever you want to say.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, lots of bugs and garbage and crap here. Everyone's got problems. Next up, we got Sejuani with a good nerf here to her core dueling ability that's on like a short cooldown. I guess Sejuani Top must still be a thing if they're nerfing this. And I want to say I invented Sejuani Top before it was a thing. I started doing this like 4 years ago. And just the last like year and a half, it's been like a thing. But this is kind of a bummer of a change. She really needs this ability to like not get touched, to like do well against not only the minions and to harass like through the minion line, but also to clear the jungle pretty well too. Not that it's a huge
Yeah.
nerf or anything, but when your primary dueling ability gets hit like this, it's always a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a significant amount of damage, at least percentage-wise, at rank 1. Obviously, once you've ranked it up all the way, 190 to 180 isn't that bad. But this is surprising to me. I haven't seen Sejuani too much. Maybe she's really powerful in the pros or something.
Yeah, she's always been kind of a fixture of the pro scene just because of her consistent engage and stuff like that.
She's a super useful champion, yeah. I mean, she's okay for peel. She's really good for engage. She's tanky. Her ultimate is game-changing. Yeah.
Yep. Okie dokie. We'll skip these Shyvana changes because they didn't change her AP ratios again. So next up we got Talia, and she got a nice juicy nerf from her bread and butter damage skill. And since this is like a per stone thing, this actually is better than it looks, kind of like Kai'Sa's change. Although I believe they take reduced damage after getting hit by multiple ones, so it's not quite as good as it looks, but it's something.
Yeah, so this
And
is a nice buff to the Q, and then in addition, the cooldown being reduced on her E actually puts it at the earlier ranks closer to being in line with the rank 1 W, because you always rank your W up last. So this will just allow for more aggressive combos. It's nice.
yeah, I'm glad they made it do more damage to monster. I like seeing degenerate things in my games.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I was surprised if you were a fan of Jungle Talia, because I like her much more when she's mid lane,
I'm not a
or
fan
even
of anything jungling that's not a bruiser or a dedicated tank, to be honest. All right, what do we got? Okay, we got some changes to Yon,
Trashua brother.
Yon and Yasuo here with some formula changes, I guess. Let's look at this Yasuo one first. Why don't you break this one down for me, since you probably wrote half a sticky note about this?
Yeah, it
What do we
looks
got?
really weird, right? Base shield increased to 125 to 600 from 125 to 600.
So what is this? Good
But
at 6 or something?
if you hover
6.
over each one, and you look at, for example, at level 13,
Oh,
it's now 430 instead of 300. What's happening is it always scales as an exponential curve. And it used to kind of scale very little at the lower levels into a lot beyond like level 14. Now it's a much flatter, more linear curve, which is good for him. It means that at like the 7, 8, 9, 10 levels, he's getting a couple hundred more base shields.
oh, bro.
Recently, with the way that the ADC mythics were changed, Yasuo and Yone both have like a pretty nice little power spike once they get their Infinity Edge, particularly Yasuo. And so he's probably getting that around level 8, 9, I would say, in most games.
I feel like
He's getting
they.
a much.
I
Hmm?
feel like a lot of the time, neither of them even get that item anymore.
I usually see them get that item as a first item.
A first
What do
item?
as a
That
fir-
makes nah.
Sometimes as a first item, sometimes they go Shiv instead, and they get it as a second item.
Yeah, I see
But
that it's a
anyway,
lot better right at level 6. That's kind of what I look at, which would be the most important thing, I think, because you can
yeah,
have your flow
mhm.
meter ready to pop at 6, and then if you use your ultimate, it instantly refreshes his flow meter, so you basically get 2 of his passive off if you do it correctly. And I'm looking, and that looks like where it's kind of the most impactful, the numbers.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Chrissy. That is kind of one of his big power spikes in the game, obviously, and the fact that he can get the shield twice, and the shield is now 235 at level 6 instead of 160, means 130 more shield. Also, if you look at like the mid to mid late levels, 11, 12, 13, he's also getting a lot more shield now than he would have gotten in the past. You're talking about 130 more, or when he uses ultimate, 260 more. It's a lot.
Mm. So, in conclusion, this is a more gradual curve, while as the last one was more like back end loaded.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
It ends up being a really big deal in the mid game.
okay. And then Yon, his doesn't quite work the same as Yasuo. It's a flat amount, and then he gets a like absolute pittance if he hits multiple things with it. But it only can stack off the second thing that he hits. So if you hit 5 people with it, no, you don't get the bonus amount another 4 times. He only gets 1 extra bonus shield if he hits more than one like enemy champion. So, but
Right.
this is something, and something's better than nothing. His is considerably
Yep.
less strong than Yasuo's, to be honest.
15 more base shield at all levels on Spirit Cliff. It's nice, but it's no Yasuo.
All right, and then Yorick, as we mentioned earlier, his maiden got the shit end of the stick, but I don't feel too bad for him because it is actually a pain in the ass to even deal with his maiden if he doesn't want you to kill it. And if you take good care of that thing can be up for like 15 minutes straight. Uh, I've actually grown to hate Yorick, I gotta be honest. He makes me, I don't know. It's frustrating to see something so brain dead. It makes
Yeah,
me
it's a
long to
very
lane against
degenerate
Nasus.
playstyle that is actually encouraged and rewarded by Yorick. Like, players who are playing him degenerately and just, blindly and stupidly, I don't even want to say stupidly, just blindly split pushing are doing the correct thing. He's probably number 4 on my list of degenerate champs after Tryndamere, Yuumi, and Sion.
Yeah. The annoying thing is there's only a handful of champions that can even match him. And if you're not playing Nasus, you're basically in for a real bad time.
Yeah, so as far as the actual changes they made here, he used to, the maiden used to get a huge health increase from 1100 plus 75% of Yorick's health to 3300 plus 75% of Yorick's health at level 16. Now at level 16, it's only 1300 health. The maiden is getting resistances now. I would say from level 1 to 15, this is pretty power neutral. At level 16, 17, 18, it's a pretty big nerf to the split push and the dueling potential.
Does that effectively mean that it was being dealt true damage before this change?
I think so. I think so. It's weird that they took away health and then increased the armor and magic resist, because the only two things that really would make a difference for are true damage and lifesteal. I guess you can't lifesteal off the maiden quite as effectively now, but it's weird that they made two changes that do almost the exact same thing in the opposite direction.
If it's a nerf, it's warranted because this thing is way too strong, even at level 6. It is way too difficult to take down or to even prioritize over Yorick.
Yeah, yeah. At level 6, it's probably a little bit of a nerf too.
At all ranks, it was
Um,
too annoying.
yeah, because you're only getting 60% of Yorick's maximum health now instead of 75. Interestingly, this could slightly encourage Yorick's to build a little bit more damage and a little bit less tank. But it's a small change until level 16.
But did you forget? It heals now.
Yeah, 2.5 health per second. Ooh, wow. I'm
Well,
so scared.
I like I was mentioned, it's so common to see this. The first time you summon it, it's not uncommon to see it up for like 10 or 15 minutes, and that adds up, right?
Yeah, yeah. Soraka, will have to throw like two more bananas at it over 3.5 minutes to kill it now.
That health regen, that's damage
Ooh.
mitigation.
Oh, that is, just stacking with this armor and magic resistance that the maiden gets now. She's gonna be literally unkillable.
Okay, that'll do it for the monster or the champions. I said monsters. Okay, now we're going to talk about some items. And which one of these is not a bug?
This is the
Let's
Oops
keep.
All Bug Fix edition. It's
Can't
really,
even
I think,
make sense of that Night Harvester one.
yeah. So that is actually the one thing that I did look into the official patch notes for. Um,
For
and what
shame.
what? Yeah, well, I'm bringing the information here, Chrissy. You're not. What this is basically mostly they're trying to get rid of Night Harvester procking on item effects, particularly Static Shiv, but also lots of other item effects that had dealt damage to an enemy champion without applying a spell effect. So, for example, like Static Shiv would not apply the Rylai's slow, but it would apply the Night Harvester damage, and they're
Oh,
getting rid of that. So now you need to either basic attack, use an ability, or have your pet damage them in order to proc Night Harvester.
oh, well, if that's why, I don't think I had a problem with that before.
Yeah, I just think that's probably a smart change. And the other one that I just wanted to point out, even though it is technically a bug fix, is Echoes of Helia. Um, this used to basically proc its heal and its damage to enemies when your lane partner or ally procced Font of Life. Then they got rid of that a few patches ago. Then last patch it was, I assume, accidentally brought back, and now they're getting rid of it again as a bug fix. But in case you thought, oh, I actually can use Font of Life on Zareth Stone or something like that to proc Echoes of Helia for my partner, just be aware that you cannot do that anymore.
Bummer.
Yeah, I had a couple of instances where I had like polymorphed someone as Lulu, and then my or even just slowed them, and then my lane partner or one of my allies attacked them, and I got credit for the kill from Echoes of Helia doing the damage, and I was already like 1200 range out of the fight, and I was like, how the hell did I just get that kill? Because if I had recently CC'd them, I could see it happening. But yeah, it was just Font of Life that did it. And I was looking at that like, how the hell did I get the kill? I wish that they would give the credit to the person who actually procced the who procced the Echoes of Helia's damage. Whichever ally actually dealt damage to give you the heal, and whichever ally you shielded or healed to give the damage to the opponent from Echoes of Helia. I wish that that ally would get credit for the kill instead of you. That's what just makes it kind of an awkward support item to use. I still love it though.
Yep.
All right, enough for my soliloquy. Should we move to runes, or were there any other bug fixes you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm not much of one for the bug fixes unless I know it's one of their lies where it wasn't really a bug and then it was how it was intended to be used. They just decided to get rid of the extra functionality and then call it a bug after like 10 years.
I see. So it's the opposite of Microsoft. Microsoft has a bug and they call it a feature. Riot thinks that they were having a feature, realized it wasn't good, and then they call it a bug.
There you go, yeah. They do that
All
every
right.
now and then. Especially with things that interact with like Jin. No longer scales off of and be
Bug
like,
fix.
it's a bug fix. I'm like, no, that's how the math works. It was just an oversight.
That is a really interesting tinfoil theory, and I like it.
It's not. That's not tinfoil. That's pretty legit.
That is a really interesting tinfoil theory, Chrissy.
Okay, next up we got Glacial Augment, the slow one with the beams of ice and shit that you don't see too much. We got less slow, but more scaling from the people that won't take this. So this is pretty cool. Most of the people that take this are either supports or kind of mages, and that's kind of it. But now it has a bigger slow if you're running AD and more for the mages, so more power to like Morgana, I guess.
Yeah, I always kind of forget that the glacial augment not only slows but also causes the enemies to deal less damage to your allies, not you, but your allies.
Yeah, that was a cool change.
Yeah, and that means that it really is best as a support rune in most cases. The break-even point for these changes is about 300 bonus AD, which you'll almost never reach as someone using Glacial Augment, or 300 AP, which would be possible with someone like Morgana, maybe Karma. Although Karma doesn't immobilize except on her W, so she's not usually going to bring this. Anyway, yeah, this is a slight nerf. Um, and it's probably going to be the worst for like the tank supports that we're bringing this. Maybe like a Mumu. Sorry, support a Mumu. I don't feel bad for you. Maybe support Poppy. Would sometimes bring the glacial augment. Mostly this is not too bad. It's just a slight nerf to the tanks that were using it.
Hmm. I know there's a really obnoxious Alawi build where she builds the what the hell is it, Frostfire Gauntlet? They've changed the name of that thing like 56 times.
Yeah, I think that's it.
It creates the slow field, and then I think she was also taking this for
Really?
I forget how there was some convoluted way that Alawi can trigger the thing.
Well, she would need to be taking like the freeze item, I think, because you have to immobilize somebody to
Yeah,
use it.
I know. I forgot what they were doing.
The one that freezes in a cone.
No, no, not Everfrost.
No, then how are they able to immobilize anyone?
I forget. It was something clever.
Okay.
But it was Frostfire Gauntlet was like their well, I guess it's a legendary now. And then between that and however they were proccing this, it was basically just you could not get away because of the low cooldown on her W. She could just create a new frost field like every 2 seconds, basically.
Well, Frostfire Gauntlet creates a frost field that slows you, but it doesn't help you actually get the immobilized to proc Glacial Augment.
Yeah, I know.
You sure she was using Glacial Augment?
Yeah, it was a few months ago.
Interesting.
I forget.
If anybody remembers that and can tell us how Ilaoi was proccing Glacial Augment, please put it in the comments. I'm curious.
Yeah. I can't remember how they did it, but I remember that. So I had to lane against it. Okay, next up we've got some summoner spells. And you can smite pets. I don't know.
Okay, so it's not really documented here, but you could always smite pets. It used to do 600 true damage, and now it's doing a lot less.
I don't understand why you can't just smite him for the current smite damage. That was always the thing.
It was always a thing, right? But you know, I don't think you were ever like one-shotting Daisy. But some of the other champions, like you could smite the Maiden at level 6 and take away like half of her health. Tibbers.
So
I think what they want to do is basically just make it so you can't just use smite to get rid of a big summon.
Yeah, but if you're gonna make it this low, this is basically just a misclick bait, other than actually trying to damage something.
I agree with that. Does the blue smite still steal speed? Or is it just a slow now?
No,
it still steals. So maybe that's part of the reason you would use smite against a pet. Besides that, yeah, it's like it might as well say you can't smite pets anymore.
Whatever. Okay, I'm not going to look at all of these crazy ass things.
Yep. Just if you
There
play
are.
a lot of Arena, I
Holy
would say just
smokes.
take a look at all the changes yourself.
Okay, I am going down to the hot fixes though because there is I think there's one, yeah. Yeah, no, there's two. Okay. For a few days, apparently Bard's heal could not heal anyone, so that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And then a couple days ago, there was another problem with his heal. Okay, all right,
Where it wouldn't
never
heal
mind.
anyone properly.
I guess this was all bullshit. I thought some of this stuff was like stat changes, but it's all just
Yeah,
nonsense.
yeah, yeah. The stat changes were only for Arena, and they put that in with the hotfix. So that is our patch 13.15. Like I said, it's fine, I guess. I don't have a huge problem with anything that they did. I don't think anything is really has a lot of flair either. It's just some decent balance changes for champions that they thought were a little bit out of line.
What do you think the strongest change was? Either strongly bad or strongly good?
From this whole patch, that's a really good question. I would say probably Talia's I like a lot. She's a champion that's just bubbling under, where I think people would be playing her more. And
Mm-hmm.
I particularly like that they changed the cooldown at early ranks on that one.
And what do you think is the worst one?
The worst change they made, I've got to say, getting rid of the AP ratios for Tibbers on Annie, I think was stupid.
Okay, that's interesting. For me, I think by far the strongest change was to Caitlyn's passive and just the bonus damage
Yeah.
on her ultimate on an ability that already does a lot. I think Caitlyn's changes were by far the strongest and most impactful just because it made an already lane dominant champion more lane dominant. And then the Ivern nerf, the Trigger Seed nerf, I'm going to have to give that to my seal of disgust with as the worst change because they gave him something that was so good and then they took it away from him, and he's
Would the
shit
seal
already.
of disgust just be a picture of you vomiting?
It's just the poop emoji on Ivern's face, It's
Oh man.
replacing all of the buttons on his action bar with poop emojis.
Sounds like a skin we can make for Ivern.
Yeah, he should just be a poop emoji that has these skinny little toothpick arms and legs that he has regularly. It would be very fitting.
Yeah, the skin name would be IBS Ivern.
All right, that does it for 13.15. This one came out a few days late, so probably have to do another one in like a week.
Oh my god, we've done so many patch notes and champion judgments recently.
Well, it
Been
just
just like
kind of,
a stream of content for our 30 viewers.
yeah, no, 78. And
Congratulations.
none of those are me. I went out of my way to not subscribe to my own channel. All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Take care.